Good afternoon, y'all. Locks and Low Firearm Reviews here today. Alright guys, so I'm going to be making a series of videos going over some of the guns and gear that you've either seen on the channel or that I've had or own. I get a lot of questions from people who watch the channel, watch my videos, and they ask me, what type of gun do I have, what type of plate carrier, gun belt, bags and gear, and all these questions. And so I feel like I should make a dedicated video on all the stuff I use to kind of help you guys out. So today's video is going to be on my main fighting rifle. So to answer the question, Locks, if you could grab one rifle and run out of the house with, what rifle would that be? And so we're going to talk about that rifle here today.
You can't kill my confidence, you think I give a fuck, that's what they do. You can't kill my confidence, you think I give a fuck, that's what they do. You can't kill my confidence, you think I give a fuck, that's what they tell me. All the fucks I ever give
Alright guys, so hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hopefully this is educational and gives you a lot of thinking points if you're looking to build or buy your primary fighting rifle. So my primary rifle that I would run out of the house if things hit the fan today to use to defend my life with would be this one right here. This is my 11.5 inch AR15 pistol in 5.56 223 caliber. Now if you follow the channel for any time, especially the last few years, you will see that I have consistently used an 11.5 inch AR15. To me, the 11.5 inch AR15 is the perfect barrel length, especially for us civilians and the things that we can find ourselves getting into. Now, it's not perfect by any means, but it's more of a personalized opinion that I feel like the 11.5 inch is the perfect barrel length. If you check out one of our recent videos that I did and Keith did, Operator Anonymous, a lot of us in our training group, Short Buzz Actual, believe that the 11.5 inch AR15 is really the best overall length for the platform. And so here today, I'm going to talk about mine. We did a video detailing ours, not too long ago, so you want to check that video out, you can on my channel and Keith's channel. But today, I'm going to go over tip to butt all the things I have on my rifle and why I have those things on here. It's very specific as to why I got those certain items. So I'm going to start from the muzzle end or the suppressor end and work my way back to the brace. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to talk about is my suppressor. Now this is a YHM Yankee Hill Machines T2 Turbo full size 5.56 suppressor. So this can is dedicated to the 5.56 projectile or the 223 projectile, and it's also a full size can. Now when you're looking for suppressors, they usually come in two sizes. You got a full size or you got a smaller size, usually referred to as a K can. So I decided to go with the full size. Even though it's longer, it does give a better sound reduction and muzzle flash reduction as well. So one of the primary things about a suppressor outside of the noise and sound reduction is that it mitigates the flash signature and your report of the rifle. So with flash signature, if you're shooting in low light or nighttime conditions without a suppressor, and especially if you're using like a short barrel gun, it tends to give off a large flash of gunpowder, unburnt gunpowder, which can give away your position. So to mitigate that, a lot of people have flash hiders. Sometimes they do a good job, but sometimes you can still give away your position, depending, especially with a short barrel, you're still going to get a flash of unburnt gunpowder. And so a suppressor will really help you mitigate that flash signature and conceal your position a lot easier. Then you have the sound reduction, where it's not so loud, so if you're in a team environment, you got other people with you and you need to communicate, it makes it easier to communicate with each other when you're not trying to talk over loud banging gunshots. And also the sound report. So if you fire a bullet, you hear the crack of the supersonic bullet, then you hear the boom of the actual gun going off. Now with the suppressor, you might hear the crack of the round going off, but there is no follow-up boom of the loud gunshot behind it to kind of help you determine where the shot came from. So that's one of the three things a suppressor can help you do. My suppressor, the reason why I went with the Yankee Hill machine, honestly, was that doing my research and looking at the testing of the can, and also looking at my buddies like Eric and Keith who have YHM cans, and looking at my other buddies that have like Surefire cans or more expensive cans, the Yankee Hill machine suppressor did better or just as good as those cans that were over $1,000. When I purchased a can, it was about $400 or $500, and then your $200 tax stamp. So under $1,000, I could get me a suppressor that was going to withstand pretty much everything I've given it over these years. All the continuous strings of fire, all the rough environments I put it through, and it still chugs to this day. I've had well over 1,000 rounds through this can, and I've had zero issues with anything with the can or anything with the baffles. Alright, so that's my suppressor. And so majority of suppressor companies require you to go out and purchase their muzzle device in order for that suppressor to mount to the gun. So Yankee Hill machine is the same way. So I have the Yankee Hill machine muzzle brake on my gun. Now I wanted to go with a flash hider on this gun because it's a short barrel gun, and when you shoot a short barrel gun, they are loud. When you put a muzzle brake on there, they're even louder. And then they have a huge flash that they give off because of all the unburnt gunpowder getting cooked off at the outside of the gun. So, but Keith kind of talked me into getting muzzle brake because, again, I'm not a scientist on this, but muzzle brakes help act as a sacrificial baffle, which helps with the longevity and keeping the longevity of your suppressor a lot more, if that's a word, a lot better than a flash hider does. So again, you can kind of Google and do more research on that, but a muzzle brake is inherently better to have on your gun if you're going to run suppressed than a flash hider. So that's why I went with the Yankee Hill Machine's flash hider for this gun. Now when I first had it, I did not have this Kurz kit. Now what a Kurz kit will do is shorten the overall length of that suppressor. When I first got it, the suppressor was kind of more out to here, a little bit longer. So when I added the Kurz kit, it allowed the suppressor to kind of sit back a little bit closer to the barrel of the gun, which kind of shrunk the overall length. It made it feel a bit more compact. So if you're looking for that to kind of compact or shorten up that overall length of your suppressor, something like a Kurz kit, at least for this case, might work. Now, depending on what suppressor and muzzle device you have, you might have to look at other options, but they do exist out there. Alright, so like I said, YHM muzzle brake, and I just take my YHM suppressor and I just thread it on until all the clicking stops, and now my suppressor is properly mated up to the muzzle device on my gun, and I can shoot it suppressed. Talking shit about my 5X. Bitch hit.
It's still gay though.
That's why I have it. It's perfect. Steel case ammo. That's Centurion spray.
Nice.
Is it only the blue or also that last one?
Alright, moving on, we have the barrel. So the barrel I'm running in this gun at this time right now is a Roscoe 11.5 inch barrel. I've had several barrels, like 3 or 4 barrels through this 11.5. Like I've had my 11.5 for years now, since like 2018. But it's gone through different changes and additions, accessories, this, that, and the third, colors. And so I've had either a Ballistic Advantage barrel or a Roscoe barrel. When it comes to barrels, Ballistic Advantage or Roscoe Manufacturing are my 2 go-to barrels. Not just because they're cheaper, but they have good accuracy. They both guarantee sub MOA gun or sub MOA accuracy. They're very reliable, they're very durable, and you can get them, you know, in different coatings if you want stainless steel or something like that, or like for more of a precision gun. Or you get this one I have right here, which is from Roscoe. This is their Bloodline, I think, barrel. It's really their cheapest entry line barrel, but it's designed for heavy strings of fire. If you're having a fighting gun, then that gun is going to be used pretty often. You're going to shoot that gun pretty often, and you're going to be not just doing 1 or 2 rounds. You're going to be going through 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 mags, maybe more with that gun. So you're definitely going to want that gun to be durable, reliable, and maintain its accuracy as that barrel starts to heat up. And you're sitting round after round through that barrel, and as the gun heats up, typically your rounds, your grouping will start to expand, because those bullets are not engaging the rifling of your barrel as much when it's super hot. So no, it's a 1 in 7 twist, and it's honestly been a good barrel for me probably about the last at least couple years now. So Roscoe Manufacturing, Ballistic Advantage, those are my 2 go-to barrels if you're looking for a good budget barrel that's not going to break the bank, but yet not suffer in anything like for reliability, durability, or accuracy. So those are my go-tos. Now the rail I have on this gun is a BCM MCMR rail. When I was looking for a rail for this gun, I knew I was going to start getting into the night vision game, and I was going to mount an IR laser. So I wanted a rail that was going to be strong, lightweight, have M-lock cuts on the rail, but also was going to maintain 0 for an IR laser. And so the BCM MCMR rail did that for me at a decent price as well. So if you look at this rail, I might have to zoom in. You have tabs here on both sides that will lock up to the rail to prevent any type of shifting. And also with the screws on the gun, they're coming one way this way and one way this way, and they have like a piece of metal in between them that will not let the screws rotate. So it gives you an additional lockup on that rail. So if you get like a cheaper rail, it may not have those tabs, or might not come with a way to properly ensure that your rail is not shifting during your strings of fire. Now if you look at, you know, certain cheap guns under a high-speed camera, when you go to fire, that rail will start to shift separately of the receiver, and that, when you're using an IR laser, can throw off your accuracy or throw off your shots, because it's not hitting where you think it's hitting, because again it's shifting in those moments of fire. So that's one of the big things I wanted when I was getting a rail, was that it was not going to shift on me when I'm using my IR laser under night vision, and shooting is going to maintain 0. Or especially if I dropped it or something, now my rail hasn't completely shifted, and now I've lost my IR 0 as well. So the MCMR rail has done everything I've asked it to, again, for at least the past couple years now. It's probably been more. I know it's been more, but you know, for everything you see me do on this channel with short busts, all the hard stuff we've done, all the rucking we've done through the woods, and everything else, you know, it's always maintained its 0 with the IR laser, and it's never shifted on me. So BCM MCMR rail is what I have on my gun here. Now there's a lot of good rails. You don't have to go with the most expensive, but you definitely want a rail that's going to have a positive lockup, be lightweight, and also durable, to where if you dropped it, the rail's not going to bend, break, or shift on you. Alright, another thing to consider, especially with these short guns, when you're going through a heavy string of fire, these guns will get hot. And which is something I kind of dealt with shooting this gun throughout the years. When I first had it, I had no rail panels or anything on it, and I would just start to shoot, and by like mag 3 or 4, the gun would be kind of so hot that it was kind of hard to maintain a positive C-clamp on it that you're supposed to have. Now I would end up either like gripping like this, or gripping on the mag well, gripping somewhere to where it just was not so hot. And there's times where I've had tried to hold on the mag well, it was just too hot. I tried to hold down here, it was just too hot. And so I look for other ways that I can help mitigate that heat on my gun and be able to maintain a positive grip on the rail the way I should for as long as I could. So one of the first things I did was get rail panels. I know you can't see it, but I have the Magpul plastic rail panels under this wrap here. And for a while, they did the job, but eventually, again, the gun's just going to get too hot to hold. So I looked for an additional layer of heat protection and went with this M81 camo Wiseman Company Hot Pocket. So it's like a thermal wrap that goes around the rail of your gun, and it has slots at the bottom, so if you want to put like a hand stop or vert grip, you can, and allows you to have a positive made up on your rail. But this provides you an additional layer of protection from your gun getting too hot. And so with a combination of the rail panels and the hot pocket, this is probably as good as you're going to get. I wear gloves sometimes to help fight off that heat, and it does a really good job. I haven't got to the point yet to where it was just too hot to hold. I've gotten it really hot and warm, but never too hot where I just still cannot maintain my positive grip on my gun. Now I can be shooting and I can definitely feel like, okay, she's cooking, but it still hasn't prevented me from not gripping the gun with the C-clamp the way I always do. So Magpul rail panels and the Wiseman Company Hot Pocket. So if you're looking at trying to mitigate heat on your gun, you're one of those guys who shoots a lot, shoots pretty often, your gun gets really hot, hard to hold, you might want to look at those two options to help mitigate that heat and maintain your positive grip for as long as you possibly can. Now another thing I use to help me grip the rifle is a vert grip. Hand stops work too, but for me I always preferred a vert grip because I can always wrap my fingers around here, have my little index finger a little bit forward, and then my thumb over the top of the rail and push my rifle into my shoulder and get on target and fire my shots. And it gives me a really good, steady way to shoot my gun without the muzzle bouncing all over the place and coming off target. So for years now, this is just how I've always shot. C-clamp, bring it up, push it to my shoulder, boom, 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 boom. Alright, and so I've always liked the vert grip for that. Now, I know back in the day, years ago, it was a heated debate over can these AR pistols have vert grips, can they not? So it really came down to that 26 overall inch length, which is one of the other reasons why I went with an 11.5. A 10.5 didn't reach that, but an 11.5 did. And so I wanted the shortest gun possible. I could have a vert grip and then still have a way to not beat my parts up, because when you run like a 10.5 or 10.3, you're honestly on the bleeding edge of efficiency for the AR-15 platform. And so a lot of those guys that were having 10.5s, 10.3s, they were constantly having to change out parts and springs on the gun because the gun was kind of beating itself apart. It would just, you fire and it would reciprocate so hard that eventually something was going to break or wear out sooner than if you had like an 11.5 or a 12.5 or a 16-inch barrel. And so with the 11.5, one of the added benefits was that you get a 40% dwell time, which means 40% slower of how this bolt comes back, goes forward in your gun, which adds to the longevity of the parts in your rifle. So 11.5 has that kind of reputation for it, that it's as short as you can really get without having to beat up your parts as hard as a 10.5 does.
Alright, she ready? Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar.
Whoa.
Allahu, sorry. She ready?
Yep.
Fight! Good shooting, Tex.
Alright, coming on the side of my rifle, I have my weapon light. So, back in the day when I was first getting to it, Streamlight was always one of my go-to lights. Not that they're bad or anything, but I was looking to make the next step forward, get something just a little bit better than a Streamlight. And I did not want to go and spend the $350 that a Surefire costed. So I wanted something in between of like $110, $120 Streamlight and a $350 Surefire light. And I went with the Mod Light PLH V2, I think like 18.6 something. I can't remember the number off my head, but it's like they have a short one and they have a long one, and so I went with the long version of their PLH V2 light. And so another thing I like about Mod Light over Streamlight was, one, the body of the light is made from a more durable metal. I've broken Streamlights before, but I have not broken this Mod Light. You know, you can look at it. I don't know if you can see on camera, but it's scratched up, it's dinged up, and it still works perfectly fine, just like when I first bought it. And so the metal itself is a little bit stronger than the metal that Streamlight uses, and it has a better. It's still 1,000 lumens, like the Streamlight is, but what made me go with this was that it has a higher candela rate than Streamlight does. Lumens is basically how bright your light is. Now, if you're trying to go distance wise, that's when candela comes into play. So candela is basically your throw, or how far the light can reach out. So if you're trying to light up a target 200 yards away, you're going to want a light with a higher candela output, and that's going to be able to reach out to that distance and light up that target at 200, 300 yards away, and you can see it and engage it. Now with Streamlight, it was good to about 100 yards, but definitely this Mod Light can reach out to 200 yards plus. When I go to Keith's place, I shine my light. Yeah, it can definitely go out to that 200 yard range, or maybe a little bit further as well. And so that's another reason I went with Mod Light. And I paid about $250-ish, $260 for this light. And so it was right in between Surefire and Streamlight, and it was more durable, more reliable, and stronger in the materials and in the light output than Streamlight. And I think that's also better than Surefire as well. That's just my personal opinion. Now you go out and get a lot of lights that are good. Streamlight's good, Mod Light's good, Cloud is good, Arasaka is good, Surefire is good. They're just expensive, and I don't want to spend the money for one of those. So when you're getting a light, just don't go out and get a light. Oh, it's 1,000 lumens for $20. Make sure that light has some type of reputable track record. Meaning, hey, it's been used by military, it's been used by local police forces and SWAT, or high-level security forces. Don't just go get it because it's cheap, because it might get wet and crap out on you. You might drop it and it might crap out on you. You might break the glass or the bezel, or you might break something on it and now, oh shit, my light doesn't work. So get something that is going to be able to stand a harsh environment or austere environments. Like, I've gotten this wet, I've dropped this, I've got it dirty, and I've never had an issue with it. Nothing's broken, nothing's gone wrong. So also with lights, there's usually two ways to activate your light. You have, what I have is the tail cap, or you'll have like a remote switch you can mount on your rail somewhere. Now, I used to be one of the remote switch guys because it seems so nicer to have your placement and you just move your thumb back and activate your light. But every remote switch I've ever had has failed me at some point. And so I just didn't like that. And two, it makes it easier for you to ND that light, which I've done several times in night shooting where you're just moving around. It might bump into something and accidentally activate, or your hand might come off your grip while you're kind of just moving around, mag changes, clearing malfunctions, or just moving. You might accidentally bump that light with your hand and ND your light. So I've always just gone recently here with just a tail cap, and you can still activate it with your thumb. Now the only downside to this is that if you try to go offhand, you know, it makes it hard. You have to do some kind of like funky way with it, but you can still get to it. But typically, you know, this is my primary way of shooting, so I just have it like this. And so it's not perfect, but it works for me. Remote switches aren't perfect. It might work for you. I just don't believe in them because they always just seem to fail when you need it the most. Okay, so that's just me. Alright, so on top of the gun, I know you see this IR device. I don't really want to talk too much about it because one, it doesn't even work. It's been broken for like a year now. I only keep it on here because it looks cool. It looks like I got a working IR device, but I don't. I'm gonna eventually get a new one and replace this, but for the time being, I just keep it on there just for looks. But this is the Somo Gear pet clone. So Somo Gear basically it's a airsoft IR laser, and for the time I had it, it worked fine. Like, it actually worked on the night vision. It would actually shoot, maintain zero. Well, it wouldn't shoot, but you know, when I was shooting, you know, the laser would work. It had the IR floodlight with it as well. Wasn't great, but it still worked. And then, you know, just one day during a training when it was cold, wet, raining, and muddy, it decided that it doesn't want to work anymore. So, but it's still here until I get it replaced. But yeah, it worked decently for a good little while. I know they had the newer Somo gears that instead of like this plastic body, they have more of a metal body. And you know, I think Eric and another guy, they've been using them for a good while now. Got them wet, dirty, and you know, dropped them, and they still seem to work. But I might still want to look at something like the Hollow Stone laser, but I've heard mixed reviews about it. Because you know, I'm kind of cheap. I don't want to spend mall money. You know, if anything, I would like to get an actual PEC. But again, that's over $1,000. You know, and I don't know any connects that get me a real actual PEC yet. So we'll see what happens down in the future, but eventually I will replace it with something that does work. Alright. Slings. So this is my favorite sling. It's a Ferro Concept Slingster. Now, it's my favorite sling because one, the price is like $45, $50. Two, I've had this sling for over 3 years now, and it looks pretty much brand new. Like, I bought it within like a couple months. It might be a little dirty, but it's not like there's threads coming off, or there's not like it's torn anywhere like it's about to rip. It comes with this this rubberized adjustable pull cord to where you can, you know, loosen it up or tighten it up. And so you got it slung on you want it tight, you just pull your cord and keep it tight to your body. Actually demonstrate. So right now I got it tight to my body all the way up, so you know I can still, you know, use my hands, do things, and it's still attached to my body. And if I want to shoot, you know, I just, and bam. If I need to go offhand, I'll just swim out of the sling, raise the stock over, boom, 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 and back down, get back in my sling, and I'll just tighten it up, and that's how I use it. So I have a little QD, an M-Lock QD slot that I mounted to the rail here, and then I got one on the end plate of my rifle where the other QD slot goes. And so when I'm putting on my sling, and you don't have to, this just works for me, I like to mount it as far back on the rail as possible and right here on the end plate. And so that gives me a good balance of maintaining my gun, but the sling isn't so far away. There's some guys who run the sling all the way forward on their rail. I used to do that in the past, or they'll have it all the way up on their buttstock, and I just always found out that it just kind of gets in the way. Now, Keith runs his at his buttstock here, and that just works for him. That's just how he likes it. But for me, I like it on my rail, far back on my rail, and on the end plate. So you're just gonna have to find out what works best for you. You might be one of those guys who likes the setup I have. You might be one of the guys that likes it on your buttstock, or at the far back in the rail, or on the buttstock. You might be one of those guys who likes it as far up on the rail and as far back in the buttstock. Right? So it's just one of the things you just gotta play with and find out what works for you. But this is my sling, the Faro Concept Slingster, and multicam. Alright, so that's this part. The gas system is a BCM gas block with a BCM gas rod. Nothing too special about it, just a low profile gas block that's made by a reputable company, and a gas rod as well. So just make sure you get something good. Sure, you can go budget, and it might work for a while, but depending on the strings of fire that you're doing, you might want to go with something that's a little bit more durable, like a BCM. No, I don't have an adjustable gas block. You know, again, depending on what you're doing, especially if you're shooting suppress all the time, it could be beneficial to you. Me, I don't like too many moving parts in my, fighting gun, because moving just usually means that something can break. So I always just go with like a standard gas block with a standard gas rod. It's a DI gun, so direct impingement, and so I don't need anything too fancy in this gun. And DI in certain situations can be better, especially if you're shooting in like muddy environments, than like something like a piston. So just one of the things you got to look at what you're doing, and see what works best for you.
Friendly fire.
Get it right. Get it right, Anthony. All right. Shooters ready? Yep. Contact front.
Oh, I feel so fucking old.
Get it, Kate.
Go ahead, move, Anthony. Oh, fuck you, these fucking ants all over these bitch.
My man's ate up.
Hey! Reloading!
Get behind cover. Get behind cover when you reload.
Set.
Move, Anthony. Move.
Moving. Reloading.
Get behind cover. Pick up fire.
Reloading. Set.
Handguard.
Now coming over to the rail. So my upper and lower is an Anderson lower, which is honestly a budget lower, but it works for me. I've had like 7+ AR15s, and every one of them but one has been an Anderson lower. And I've never had an issue with it. So people talk down on Anderson lowers, and there are other people who praise Anderson lowers. I'm one of the people who praise them, because as long as the lower and the upper is in spec, and your pins fit in and all the parts fit in, there's nothing wrong with it. Essentially a lower and receiver is a receiver and a lower. Outside of that, so there's nothing too special about it. I just don't feel like spending $200-300 on a lower or a receiver, upper receiver. So I go Anderson lower. Yeah, this budget, but like I said, every cowboy needs his horse, and all my ponies ride. So I'm gonna keep using Anderson until I have like a real legitimate problem. I've never had one crack. I never had one bend. I've never had one be out of spec. And so I'm gonna keep riding with Anderson lower. Alright, so we're gonna talk about the parts I have in my lowers. So in my lower, I've built a lot of AR-15s, and so, well, I won't say a lot. I built a number of AR-15s. So I have like a parts bin with a lot of springs and pins and triggers. And so when I'm building out a lower, a lot of times I just pull from that and just put it in here. So the parts kit is really a mix match because, you know, it just comes from an assortment of just kits I've had over the years. So if you look at my safety selector, on this side and this side, there's honestly two different selectors, but they just fit in and they work fine. It's never, again, I've had this rifle for years now and I've never had an issue, and so they work, they maintain the safety of the gun. It's just two different pieces that just, you know, I put together and it works. Alright, so one thing I've had, and not just this gun, but other guns, and it's not something exclusive because, oh, you're used to Anderson. No, this happened to arrows, it happened to BCMs, your trigger pin. So if you look at right here where I have these two screws and this bar on both sides, what that does is prevent your trigger pins from walking out. They're called anti-walk pins. And so instead of like the mil-spec closed-in trigger pins that go in and hold your trigger in place, they have a hollow ends with threads in them. So you'll put them in like normal, and then you'll take your screw, well, you put your bar up to it with two holes, and you put your screws through the holes, and that keeps your pins from walking out essentially. So if you ever have that problem where you're kind of shooting and shooting and shooting, and you're noticing your trigger pins are slowly starting to stick out, you got to keep pushing them in. You might want to upgrade and get something like these anti-walk pins. They're cheap, they don't cost a lot of money, but they will prevent those pins from coming out. Like I said, I've had this in here for years now, and I've never had an issue of my pins ever walking out. So it was a good fix for me. Alright, now we're going to talk about this little doohickey here. So traditionally, with a standard AR-15, like when I was in the Navy, to lock your bolt back, you would have to pull on the charging handle with one hand and then push down on the paddle to lock back your bolt carrier. If you want to send it forward, you would push forward, push in on the paddle, and the bolt will go forward. So what this Magpul bad lever allows you to do is, with one hand, pull back the charging handle and bolt carrier, push up on this lever, and it locks back the bolt carrier. And when you want to drop the bolt, you just push down and it sends the bolt forward. And so if you can imagine, you're shooting, you're doing a drill, you're bang, 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 your bolt locks back on last round, you go to reload, put your mag in, drop the bolt, and you fire. So it helps you with getting quicker shots after a reload. It is a real big help if you're ever clearing a malfunction to lock the bolt back, take the mag out, clear out that double feed or clear out that malfunction, load the mag back, drop the bolt, and you're back on target. So that's one of the reasons I've still had this on here for years. Keep talk shit about it every time, but I don't care because I've seen the added benefit of this device, and I'm gonna keep using it. And so, you know, when I do reload drills, we're running gunning, or we're doing malfunction drills or injured shooter drills, and you got like one hand and you're trying to lock back and reload and stay in the fight, this bad lever really does come in handy, at least in my honest opinion. And so that's why it's here on my gun, and I'm gonna keep it here on my gun. Alright, now we're going to talk about the trigger. So the trigger is the ACH. I'm putting on the screen the name of the trigger because the first words I totally, for some reason, I just can't remember what the company name is, but it's their ACH trigger. So Advanced Combat Trigger, ACT trigger, Advanced Combat Trigger. And so honestly, it's a mil-spec trigger that's been polished. So why do I have this in my gun? Before this trigger, I had the Geisley SSAE trigger, which is honestly, I think, is the best trigger on the market you can have for any AR type firearm. But it was kind of too nice for this gun. There are times where, you know, you're taking a precision shot and I feel like I would break the shot a little bit sooner, or if I'm running the drill, I would break the shot a little bit sooner or fire 2 shots a little bit faster than what I want it to, because the trigger was just so nice and so smooth. And so I wanted something that was a little bit stiffer. And so I replaced that and put it in that SSAE and put it in my 308 AR10, which is a perfect match in heaven for that gun, and went with this ACT trigger. It's a 2-stage trigger. It's not a bad trigger, but now I feel a little bit spoiled because I do miss some things at SSAE in this gun, which is take those precision shots, because this is, like I said, it's a polished mil-spec trigger. So if you're trying to take a real precise shot, you can do it. Don't get me wrong, you can do it. Like, I've stacked shots with this gun. It's just a little bit stiffer, and it doesn't break as cleanly as, you know, as I want it to. And so eventually I will be upgrading this trigger to not like the SSAE, but either the SDC, the Geisley SDC Super Dynamic Combat Trigger with the flat face, or just like the standard Geisley 2-stage trigger. Something Geisley. I might even go with the LaRue and BT, depending on how I feel at the time, because all those triggers are good. And so whichever really is just available for purchase at the time, but most likely might be a Geisley 2-stage trigger or SDC, because I do like the flat face trigger. Even though LaRue MBT is a flat face, sometimes it's hard to get them in stock at times with the LaRues. So which is ever there, I'm gonna go with. Either one of those 3 triggers will be perfect for this gun, and I will not be upset about any one of those 3 choices. But I definitely will upgrade this trigger from this ACT to something that is a little bit stiff, but will break a lot cleaner than what this trigger does. So, but for the time being, the trigger works. Alright, now I'm gonna pull the pins, and we're gonna talk about my bolt carrier and my charging handle. So my charging handle is the Strike Industries latchless charging handle. Now, I went with the latchless version of their charging handle because before I went out and purchased the charging handle, I was at the range, like, doing a mag dump, just shooting. And somewhere in between my mag dump, I noticed my charging handle was kind of coming back and smacking me in the nose a little bit. And then when I got done shooting, I looked down and realized that the latch on the charging handle had broken off. And so every time I shoot, it would just kind of come back and reciprocate with the bolt carrier a little bit. And so I looked at what can I do to mitigate anything like this happening, like my latch ever breaking in the future. And so when I seen the Strike Industries latchless charging handle, I thought it was a win, because it's like, hey, I can't break a latch if the latch was never there. And so I went with it, and, you know, for a good while I had no problems. It was working perfectly fine. But eventually I got this plastic piece from Strike Industries that mounts to the back of your charging handle, because, you know, I started shooting suppress more, and I noticed I was getting a lot of gas back in my face. And so something like this really helped out with that and keeping that gas from coming back into my face. And then 2, even though this thing has a latch on there, if that latch ever broke, my charging handle will still work because it's a latchless charging handle. So it seemed like a win-win at the time. And like I said, I've had this for years now, and I've never had anything break or be an issue. You know, I take it out every now and then, I lube it, I clean it, and I put it right back in my gun, and it keeps working. Alright, next is the bolt carrier. So she's dirty. I need to clean her, but that's the thing about this bolt carrier and this rifle. Like, I can go several range trips without really cleaning it. I just add lube and go, and it works perfectly fine, like, every time. I've only had like 1 issue with this gun, and that was really kind of me because I didn't clean it as much. But, you know, quick fix, and it's right back shooting. So the bolt carrier is the E2 Armory gold-plated bolt carrier. And so, you know, I can stand it up, and it stands straight up like how it's supposed to. If you want to know if your bolt carrier needs anything like the O-rings or springs replaced, extend out your bolt carrier and sit it down. If it stands straight up, supporting its own weight, that's how you know it's good to go. But if you put it, extend it out and it immediately collapses on itself, then you're gonna want to probably replace some of your O-rings or your springs in there. It's time for some type of maintenance, because it should stand just like this, like a good man with a woman. It needs to stand fully erect every time. But I did not buy this bolt carrier. This was sent to me by E2 Armory for review on the channel. They basically told me to, go on the website and, find one of the bolt carriers to review. And so, of course, I went and got, the best one I could in the gold plated color. They had like nickel boron, red, blue, and gold. And so, what also kind of led me to getting this gun was, at the time, this rifle was all black, just all black. And so getting the gold plated bolt carrier made me feel like, my rifle had a gold grill. And so that's kind of my thing for a good while till I got it painted, was that, my rifle's got golds. So, that's just me. But like I said, I've had this bolt carrier 4 years now, and maybe once a year, I just go through and do rudimentary maintenance and just replace things that need to replace. But I've never had the bolt carrier just not work or just break on me. It has been working unsuppressed or suppressed for 4 years now, and I'm completely sold on the E2 Armory bolt carrier line, because I've just seen it work firsthand for me. And so when you're getting a rifle, you definitely want a good bolt carrier. A bolt carrier is it's definitely one of, but I would make a case that it's the #1 most important thing in your rifle. You can have the most accurate barrel, the greatest optic, the smoothest trigger, but if your gun doesn't fire because your bolt carrier sucks, or you can't chamber around, or your bolt carrier breaks, then all those things don't mean nothing. So the bolt carrier is the heart of your rifle, right? And so you definitely want to make sure your rifle has a good heart. So get you a good bolt carrier, E2 Armory, BCM, Toolcraft. Those are good bolt carriers, and I feel like they won't necessarily break the bank. A good bolt carrier is it's going to be over $100. If you got a bolt carrier and it's not on a sale or anything, for $75, I'd kind of question it, right? Now, granted, if you bought a bolt carrier and it's $560, I'd question that too, because it's it shouldn't cost you that much for a good bolt carrier. But definitely $100 to $250 for a good bolt carrier is kind of that range that I would be okay, that's good to go. But yes, you definitely need a good bolt carrier. If anything in your gun is going to be the most nitpick thing in your gun, it definitely needs to be the bolt carrier, because nothing else outside of that matters if you have a shitty bolt carrier, but everything else is good, because your gun is going to just be shitty eventually. Alright, so that's the bolt carrier. Now we're going to talk about my optic setup. So me and Eric and Keith, we did a couple video series on these prism optics here to find out which one worked better. So this is the Primary Arms 5X prism optic, mounted on top of the rail. It got a little rail with the 5X. I replaced it with something different that sits a little slower, but you can use the pick rail. So I replaced that rail with a custom plate, and I have a Hollowstone 509T sitting on top. And so basically what we call this is the ACOG at home. A standard ACOG is going to run you over $1,000 unless you find it on Marketplace or some back webs that's been used. An ACOG is going to run you $1,000, and then when you get a red dot on top of it, it's going to cost you even more. So you're looking at $1,500 for an optic. Now the Primary Arms optic is $300 something, $300, $350. The Hollowstone 509T I got off Amazon for again $350. So under $1,000, I got me a 5X prism optic that's a fixed magnification with the Primary Arms ACSS reticle, and I got me the Hollowstone 509T, which is a red dot on my gun. So if I have a target and it's up close, I just use the red dot, boom, boom, boom. If I have a target out the distance, or I have a small target that's kind of hard to see with the red dot, I will transition down to my 5X and engage the targets, because it's got the horseshoe that you can use for moving targets. It got 2 dots off to the side. You can also use for moving targets. It has a it's got like little lines for like a BDC that goes all the way out to 800 yards, and it also has a little range finder off to the side, so if you can try to measure a target size out to 800 yards, it kind of helps you. So you put your lines on the target, you can, okay, it's roughly 400 yards away, then you move over your optic to the 4 line, and then you can send your shots. Now with this particular rifle in this setup, the furthest I have gone was 400 something yards, I think like 440, with 3 consistent hits on a man-sized steel target out the distance. Granted, this 11.5 is not a sniper rifle, but it's a very accurate gun, don't get me wrong, but it's not meant to go 5, 6, 7, 800 yards, definitely not. But 3 consistent hits with 55 grain Winchester white box ammo on a man-sized target at 400 plus yards, that's hella good. Now with this optic on my 16-inch AR15 with the ballistic advantage Hansen profile barrel, I've definitely gone out to 600 yards with consistent hits, especially if I'm using like 77 grain projectiles. I can definitely get consistent hits. And as far as clarity, now if an ACOG clarity is a perfect 10, this is about an 8.5. So that means it's pretty much just as good as an ACOG. If we put 2 of them together, and you can still see those targets. Now the ACOG is just a little bit clearer, but this is no slouch by any means. You can still see those targets, at least the painted white targets, out to 500 yards. We did a drill where we put on all our gear, plate carrier, helmets, and whatnot, and we went out into the woods and we had camouflage steel targets about 200-300 yards away. Now I have this particular optic and setup on my 13.9 at the time, and I was still able to pick up those targets and engage them successfully. So.
Three, two. Everybody, yeah, get ready for pounding. Go ahead and pack everything back up.
I was basically using my 13.9 as a DMR rifle at that point, and I had no problem seeing the targets and engaging them. So this optic is really kind of the bee's knees for if you're looking for a do-all optic under $1,000. I would highly recommend the ACOG at home, the 5X Prism with some type of red dot. I prefer enclosed red dots versus an open red dot, but that's up to you. So this is my optic setup. Primary arms 5X with the Holosun 509T. Alright, moving to the butt end of the rifle. I have the Magpul pistol grip, the K2 pistol grip, which is one of my favorites. This is my second favorite pistol grip. My number 1 favorite is the Magpul K2 Plus, which is literally the same pistol grip, just with a rubberized texture. I have this on my gun because I had it laying in my parts bin, and I just didn't see the money going out and buying another pistol grip that literally did the exact same thing this does, all because it just didn't have a rubberized texture on it that I liked. I like this just as good. The rubberized is my overall favorite. This is just fine. Right? I'm not worried about it at all. So I have it here on my gun. I have an end plate that allows me to put in a little QD. Has a QD hole for my sling. Standard castle nut, standard buffer tube. But what I did replace or add with these short guns, you're going to want an H2 buffer. A standard carbine buffer, it might work, but when you start running and getting things dirty and gummed up, you might start running into feeding issues where that carbine buffer just does not have enough ass to pick up that round, push that bolt carrier through the mud, dirt, water, or whatever gets in your gun when the conditions start to get conditiony, and can be reliable. So an H2 buffer is definitely something you're gonna want to upgrade to in these short guns. And another thing I did was upgrade the recoil spring. Well, I mean the buffer spring. So I always ran for a good little while, especially before I started shooting suppressed. I always ran just a standard, spring, carbine spring in my rifles, and it worked. But when I started shooting suppressed, I started to notice that I was not getting reliable feeding in my gun, and I needed a stronger spring. So I upgraded to the Springco Blue Spring. If you go on their website, they have different springs with different colors for different barrel lengths or different platform rifles. And so for these short barrel guns, you definitely want to go with the Springco Blue Spring, which is a heavier spring that's going to give you that added reliability to push that heavy H2 buffer, push that bolt carrier, pick up that round, whether it's well lubed or dry, whether it's wet or sunny or it's muddy or sandy, and chamber that round a lot more effectively than a standard carbine length spring. And so for a while I was having those issues, especially when I started shooting suppressed. And then once I upgraded to the Springco Blue Spring, a lot of those issues pretty much went away. Like, I don't really get feeding issues anymore in my gun, and I can reliably drop bolt and continue firing. So that might be something for you to look at if you want to get into suppressed shooting, or you've been shooting suppressed and you've been having those issues. You might need to upgrade that buffer. You might need to upgrade your buffer spring as well. Now lastly, we have the brace. This is the SBA3 pistol brace, because again, it's not an SBR, it's an AR15 pistol, so I can't have one of these on there. So I go with the pistol brace. It is collapsible or adjustable, however you want to call it, and you find your good position and you're good to go. And I've seen like the newer ones, like the SBA5 looks nice, but I like this one because it's a thinner profile. So when you're shooting in body armor, because those other ones like the SBA4 or even the 5 somewhat, because it's kind of thicker at this point here, it kind of sticks out. When you're shooting in body armor, you're going to want that thin buttstock, because you're going to have your plate carrier material or a strap. And you don't want a thick buttstock because it's going to impede you getting that good lockup in your shoulder when you're shooting with body armor on. So I really like the SBA3, and I've kept it over these years because that thin profile allows it to get in that shoulder pocket a lot better than anything else brace wise. Alright, so I think that is about it. I think I've ran over as much on the gun as I can really talk about. And so hopefully this video is good and educational for you guys if you're looking to build or purchase an AR-15. This is what I use, and it's worked for me for years now. Like, if you follow the channel, you'll see my gear, my rifle, and I shoot it all the time, which means I trust it. So this is the one gun, if I had to run out of the house to defend my life with through whatever circumstance I might find myself in. I might also take my 308 with me, but it'd be this gun, my 308, my Glock 45, and probably my Glock 19. Those are the guns I would take with me if I had to run out of the house and defend my life through whatever I might find myself getting into. And so if you're looking to build, or if you're one of those guys that I got multiple guns, but I just don't have that one gun that I will go out, I honestly trust my life to above any of the other guns, you might want to start looking at getting that box checked. Alright, so I have the most amount of time on any AR-15 I've ever shot or owned on this gun right here. So this is my baby. This is my main squeeze. This is the gun I honestly trust my life to if anything were to happen or things hit the fan. So hopefully this video was educational and good for you guys. Hope you learned something. If you did learn something, please give me a like. If you have not subscribed to the channel and this is your first time seeing me, go ahead and subscribe and check out any of my other videos. I really pride myself on being an educator versus an entertainer. Sure, yeah, I might not get all the views and the subscribers and the sponsors, but I feel like when I educate people, I get a bigger benefit than just if I got 1 million views because I shot my gun until I can cook bacon on it. Like, cool, yeah, it looks cool, but you don't necessarily learn anything from that. So one of the biggest things we do here at Short Bus, or my training company, which is Wakanda Nation, is educated shooters, right? So all in all, also, if you want to leave comments, I answer comments, so leave me a comment if you got any questions you want to know about, or if you want me to do a future video on anything specific referring to like an AR-15 building process or buying process, or putting something on your gun, please let me know, because I like the material. I can make a video off it, and it helps with the content as well. So guys, thank you for watching this video. As always, stay educated, stay dangerous. Locks and load out.